land of fearsome Vikings and ancient Christianity, center of a fierce struggle for independence. A place synonymous with fun and rock and roll, and which was green long before it was trendy. We're headed to Dublin, capital of Ireland, and you won't want to miss it. Dublin does not have a metro system, so the best option to get into town from the airport is the Dublin Express. Follow the signs to the ground transportation area outside Terminal 2 and look for this bus. You can use the app to see all their drop-off points. Now the line may be very long, so if you have to buy tickets, the ticket booth is way up at the front right here. And then you're off to central Dublin. The city of Dublin grew up around the River Liffey, and it has these guys to thank for it. Vikings don't have quite the reputation here that they do in other places, for there were really no cities in Ireland until the Vikings started to arrive in the 800s. We're here on the River Liffey, and this is where Dublin got its start. It was Vikings coming down this river, which leads out to the sea about 3 miles from here. They could bring their ships all the way down here, and for centuries, this area was full of trade. As one of the European Union's great economic success stories, this area continues to bustle with trade. The port activity has moved down towards the sea, so today the river is more a place for walking than for trade. The famous Halfpenny Bridge was once the only way to walk across the Liffey, so named because it cost half a penny to get across. Today it's free. Okay, we just saved half a penny by coming across this bridge. Now if we do this enough, we should be able to recoup the cost of the entire trip. Although it has no metro system, Dublin has a lot of public buses you can use. If the weather's good, it's a very walkable city, but then again, this is Ireland. There's also the very useful Luas tram system. Dublin streets can be very confusing, and they drive on the left. However, the streets do have these warnings for tourists telling you which direction to look. There are also very helpful signs pointing you to the major tourist sites. The best place to learn about early Irish history is the National Museum of Archaeology. Although it contains items going back 9,000 years, most of the objects on display were discovered in the late 19th and early 20th centuries when improved agricultural technologies led to farmers digging up areas that hadn't been touched since the Middle Ages. The building dates to 1870 and is in Grand Victorian style. One of the reasons that so much of this has been preserved is because of Ireland's bogs, where some of the best finds are made. Ireland's fine gold making goes back to 2000 BC. And one of the most distinctive Irish pieces of art is the brooch, used to hold cloaks together. The museum has an extensive exhibit on Viking Ireland, and you notice you see no horns on the helmets because that's something real Vikings didn't have. You get an idea of what the earliest Viking cities looked like. And the Viking influence is still evident even on one of the museum's most important Christian items, the Cross of Cong, which dates back to the 1100s. Ireland has been Christian since the 5th century. Its patron saint came over from Britain in about 432. Now, he never drove out any snakes. Ireland never had any. but he was responsible for converting a large number of people and built over 300 churches. The cathedral named after him in Dublin dates back to 1191. It's also one of Dublin's most popular public parks. The largest church in Ireland, this was a Catholic cathedral until this guy converted his entire empire to Protestantism so he could get a divorce. Like most of the great churches in Ireland, this one became Anglican, and today it is the national cathedral of the Irish Anglican Church, even though only 2% of the Republic of Ireland is Anglican. Elaborate floor tiles, which resemble quilts, are characteristic of Irish churches. These were restored in the 1800s but are based on the medieval patterns. The choir section was the Chapel of the Knights of St. Patrick, an order established by King George III of Great Britain. The flags of the Knights can be seen on display. Many monuments celebrate the Irish who served in the British Army, and famous figures like author Jonathan Swift, author of Gulliver's Travels, are honored here. The other Anglican cathedral in Dublin, Christ Church, is even older. It started as a Viking church over 1,000 years ago, was built out as a stone church about the same time as St. Patrick's, but was heavily damaged, and so much of what you see today dates back to the 1800s. Has been a Protestant church since Henry converted it, and inside it celebrates its loyalty to the British Crown, although technically the Vatican still considers this to be the official Catholic Cathedral of Dublin. These tiles are also reproductions of the famous medieval one, and since the 1500s the mascot has been a fox dressed as a friar going on pilgrimage. The heart of St. Lawrence O'Toole, the first Archbishop of Dublin, was stolen in 2012 but then returned to the church. You can visit the crypts under the church with a 600-year-old book containing the church's official copy of the Magna Carta. And the tomb of Strongbow, the Norman knight who began England's 800-year control of Ireland. The British ruled from Dublin Castle, which was established in the 1200s, but most of the remaining structures are from the 1700s. Seat of British power in Ireland for centuries. In 1922, when Ireland gained its independence, this place was handed over. Today it still serves very important state functions. This is where the President of Ireland is sworn in every 7 years. Visitors would be dazzled by the entrance to the grand staircase, and the elite entertained in the elaborate state drawing room. The throne room was constructed for a visit by King George IV in 1790. This hall belonged to the British Order of the Knights of St. Patrick. The castle was used as a hospital during the First World War, which is also when the Irish Uprising occurred. James Connolly, one of the 7 signers of the Declaration of the Irish Republic, was brought here as a prisoner and eventually executed. This room is a memorial to him. Ireland's top university, Trinity College, was established to cement the Protestant British supremacy in Ireland. This is Trinity College, Dublin. This was established in 1592 by Queen Elizabeth I, not the one with the corgis. Catholics were allowed only very limited rights here until 1873, but even when the university removed its restrictions, the Catholic archbishops of Ireland put a ban on Catholics going to such a Protestant university until 1970. Provost George Salmon famously said that women would attend Trinity over his dead body, and literally the first women entered the college as his funeral was going on in the chapel. Many of Ireland's greatest writers have studied here. The most famous site at Trinity College is the Book of Kells, an 800-year-old illustrated manuscript. There's an extensive museum explaining the book, but you'll only get a brief glimpse through glass at the actual book as it is protected, and no photographs are allowed. Included in your admission, however, in a separate building is the Book of Kells Experience, a 360-degree multimedia presentation which brings the book to life. The tour also includes Trinity's iconic old library. Most of the books have been removed during the renovation, but a few shelves have been kept intact so you can get the effect. The image of the Earth that you see is not a projection. It is a helium balloon sculpture with satellite imagery from space, and it will only temporarily be on display while the library is being renovated. Also on display is the Brian Boru harp, supposedly belonging to the Unifier of Ireland, although it dates to a much later time. This harp incidentally became the national symbol of Ireland in 1922, the only country in the world to have a musical instrument as their symbol. However, the Guinness Company had already copyrighted the harp over a century earlier. That is why the Guinness harp faces to the right and the national harp faces to the left. Ireland had a parliament under British rule, although only Protestants could serve. This was abolished in 1800 and Parliament House became the headquarters of the Bank of Ireland. Dublin City Hall was once a merchant's house and a stock exchange. Its statues commemorate the struggle for Irish independence. South of Trinity College is St. Stephen's Green. The park is named after a medieval hospital which once stood here. It was a private park for the rich who lived in this area until 1880, when Arthur Guinness of the Guinness Brewing Company pushed for it to be open to the public and also paid for it to be laid out the way it is today. This is one of the many reasons he is a hero in Ireland. This is lovely St. Stephen's Green, Dublin's oldest and favorite public park. People love to come out here when the sun is shining, that is, once a year. And one of the big battles of the Easter Uprising in 1916 occurred right here between Irish volunteers and the British Army. The arch at the entrance to the park commemorates the Irish Fusiliers who fought in the South African War. Their names are listed on the inside, and if you notice, the officers have English names, but the lower ranks are all Irish names. After the uprising, this arch would be known as Traitor's Arch. Inside the park is a memorial to the rebel O'Donovan Rossa. It was his funeral in 1915 that led to the uprising. And while Irish fighters held the park in 1916, the British positioned snipers at the Shelbourne Hotel across the street. The park sits on the upscale shopping district of Grafton Street. Right across the street is St. Stephen's Shopping Center, celebrates Victorian elegance. Further up the street is the Powerscourt Centre in the former house of Lord Powerscourt. In this part of town, even the mailboxes reflect the old British aristocracy. That is the symbol of King Edward VII. If you're searching for souvenirs, then you will find carols everywhere. It can certainly simplify your experience with its wide variety of gifts, but you'll even find traditional Gaelic greetings. But it is a chain, so we found items for half as much in the pushcart across the street. The Aaron Sweater Market on Grafton Street is the same one you'll find on the island of Inishmore, so it can save you carrying sweaters back on the ferry. No trip to Dublin is complete without a pilgrimage to the Phil Lynott statue, and bring a guitar pick to leave behind. This is the statue of the fabulous Phil Lynott of the group Thin Lizzy. Thin Lizzy, of course, famous for songs like The Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak.
Tonight there's gonna be a jailbreak somewhere in this town.
Maybe at the jail. Dublin, of course, has a lot of rock and roll greats, and you can see a tribute to them at the Rock and Roll Experience. But even if you don't pay to go in, you can admire the Wall of Fame from the outside.
Move away, do you hear what I say? From under my breath.
A favorite tourist spot is Temple Bar. Bar in this case means gate, but it's easy to see where you could make a mistake. By the 1980s, this area was in decay and was scheduled to be torn down, but it was revitalized as a tourist mecca. Most of the pubs you see here are pretty new, although they claim lineages to much older establishments. And it is definitely a touristy place, but you won't forgive yourself if you miss out on it. You can come in here to get the obligatory pint, and don't worry about it. The signs assure you it's good for you. We are headed to the old storehouse for the Irish lamb stew and, of course, the Guinness. Traditionally, the south side of the Liffey had been for the English elite. The north side was Irish Town. The main street of this area is O'Connell Street. O'Connell Street features a series of statues commemorating the great heroes of Irish independence. And the first one is the namesake of the street, Daniel O'Connell. The first Catholic mayor of Dublin, O'Connell promoted non-violent resistance to British rule. Beneath him is Lady Ireland, and we can see the broken chains at her feet. She is surrounded by representatives of all segments of Ireland's population. James Larkin founded the Irish Workers' Union, and the general strike he led in 1913 was the beginning of the uprising against British rule. Charles Stewart Parnell gets a better treatment on his monument than he did in real life. A Protestant who very nearly secured home rule for Ireland, he was driven out of office by Catholic bishops who didn't like his idea of a secular state. The most important site is the General Post Office. Although it looks unremarkable inside, this was the center of the 1916 Easter Uprising because it was the center of communications in the city. The GPO Witness History exhibit inside is definitely a must-see. Ireland's immersive history exhibits are among the best you'll find anywhere. This one explains the factors leading up to the 1916 Declaration of Independence, the battle that was fought, and the ultimate defeat of the independence fighters. While most did not join in the initial uprising, it was the crackdown afterwards that really turned public opinion against the British and would lead to independence 6 years later. The strangest monument is the 400-foot steel sculpture known as the Spire. There had been a statue of British Admiral Nelson at this spot, but it was blown up in 1966 by the Irish Republic Army to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Easter Uprising. The spire was supposed to be installed for the millennium, but it was not actually put up until 2004. It's a clear example of what you get when a committee picks art and is about as well loved as you would expect. Also on the 50th anniversary of the uprising, the Garden of Remembrance was inaugurated. Laid out in the shape of a cross, it commemorates those who died in all of Ireland's uprisings. The sculpture at the head depicts the legend of the children of Lear, who were cursed to spend 900 years as swans, similar to the centuries Ireland spent under British domination. This was the first place that Queen Elizabeth visited during the first visit of a British monarch to independent Ireland. Hey, anybody with 30 corgis has got to be pretty classy. The Chester Beatty Library was donated by American businessman Chester Beatty, who moved to Dublin in 1950. The largest collection is dedicated to the art of the book. It includes writing going back 3,000 years, a large collection on Islam, on Asian writing, and European engraving. The top floor is dedicated to the religions of the world, divided into a section on Asian religion, Islam, and Christianity. An interesting timeline shows the development of communications and gives an idea how old Ireland's civilizations are. The National Gallery is Ireland's repository of fine art. It has a wide collection of Renaissance art. This is supposed to be the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon, but they're clearly in European-style dress. All the works in the Grand Gallery have some connection with Ireland. There's also a fine collection of Irish artists who adapted modern aesthetics to Ireland of their times. Jack Yeats was the brother of William Butler Yeats. Dublin's always full of life, so we hope you'll enjoy it, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.